Stoics. Hi, I'm Jeff. That's not the way you want to answer that question if we're talking about it in this way. If you're new around here, welcome. I'm on my way over to the coffee shop. Walk with me. I do this every morning, every weekday morning here on Substack. Really is an extension of a show that I host called Java with Jeff. It's Morning Mindsets for Growth. And so I just want to broaden that audience, and also I want more time to explore the ideas that we talk about in Java with Jeff. And so what I want to do today is take a couple of things. One, an entry from the Daily Stoic, actually yesterday's entry from the Daily Stoic, which is Ryan Holiday's daily meditations, I guess, based on the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, others, and his commentary on quotes from the Stoics and their philosophies. I think it's probably a good or important book for us this year, with everything that's probably going to go on. Yesterday's entry was really about who are you? It's about being able to answer that question, to really be able to say to yourself, most importantly, maybe even to others, who you are and what you stand for. And the reason that I wanted to key in on that today is on the heels of a conversation that I was having last night with someone. And this person was talking about things that they wanted to do and how they wanted to be, and complaining about a number of realities, right? Not really wanting to accept the realities and doing a lot of comparing. And so as they're talking, one of the first things, a little tough love moment, one of the first things that I wanted to say, one of the first things that came to my mind is the truth that comparison is a thief of joy. You can't compare yourself to other people, other things, because they're not relevant. Not relevant to you, not relevant to your life, to your experience. So that was one of the things. But good morning, Nicole. They kept coming back to, I want to do this because this is the real me, and I want to get this, and it's just they kept talking about different things, different activities, different material things, all of this, and tying that back to the real them, quote, the real them. And if we think about, or if we go back to what we talked about yesterday, how are we going to act authentically? How are we going to show up with intention? How are we going to take even the baby steps that we need to take in order to get things and keep things moving in the direction we need them to move this year, if we aren't acting authentically, if we don't know, right? If we can't answer that question, who are we? And so this person I was talking to last night kept saying, "Oh, this is the real me," and I had to bring a moment of tough love to that point last night, because I wasn't buying it. I hear you saying this. I hear you saying that this is what you want and this is the real you, and I'm not buying it. I don't think that's true. Ultimately, not for me to be the judge of that. But I'm looking at you, and I know you, and I've known you, and you're saying these things, and I think they're coming out of comparison. I think they're coming out of some fear, some want, some scarcity mindset, and you're saying this is the real you when it's not. And so I think I think we have to bring that all the way back around. How do we show up? And let me add a little bit more to the example from the conversation last night. And yeah, this is a young person, right? This is a young person that's in the midst of all kinds of growing pains, right? This is life, right? They're getting close to learning how to adult, and all the things that we have to go through, all the things that we have to learn in our lives, and some of the things that are absolutely true, scarcity mindset and fear, wanting grass is always greener on the other side, all those things, the comparisons, etc. And they really, I do believe that they are self-aware enough to realize that what they're saying was not true. That's not the real you. And that their real problem, the real difficulty was that they weren't wanting to accept what is real. They weren't wanting to accept what is true, what is authentic. And I think that brings up an interesting question too. We talk about this all the time, right? If we are true to ourselves, if we are true to our authentic selves, if we know our authentic selves, if we act out of authenticity and all of these, authenticity seems to me it's kind of a buzzword of the maybe 2025, maybe 24, 26. What if what if we understand, like this conversation last night, what if we understand, what if we are aware of who we are, who our authentic self is? What if we can answer the question, who are you, in a way that is deep? Good morning, Christian. Thanks for coming back. Jeff was good enough for seconds. Okay. Thank you for that. What if we are aware and we don't like it? What do we do then? What if who we are is not who we want to be? I guess that's the question. Can we change that? Yes, I believe we can. I believe we can make decisions, and that's why we talk about growth. Stuff. It's getting chilly again. Got warm the last warm 50 degrees last couple of days. And it's not going to be as going forward, I don't think. But there's no ice anymore, so there's that. That's why we talk about growth, right? We talk about growth and growth mindset because we don't want to be, we could say stuck. I don't want to be stuck. I don't want to be fixed here. I don't want to have a fixed mindset. And, it's easy for us to say only or just, but that diminishes, that has a way of diminishing us, diminishing ourselves. So we don't want to do that. So we strive to adopt this growth mindset. Where we say, you know what, this is where I am today. And a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, I'm going to be somewhere different. And I think that's one of the big things in this conversation last night that this person was struggling with. They're stuck in where they are now. And they also talked about, I use the word I can't a lot. And so my question was, you can't or you won't. There's an activity that I like. I stole this. It's Andrew McConnell wrote a business book called Get Out of My Head, I think is what it's called. He was a guest on Context and Clarity Live show I used to host. It must have been about 3 years ago. He was on Context and Clarity Live. I stole this activity from him, but when he's working with his clients, business leaders, and other people, one of the things that he'll do is he'll ask them to write down I don't remember the number he uses, but let's just say 5. He'll ask them to write down their top 5 priorities. And then they'll say, okay, great. Now we've got a list of your top 5 priorities. I want you for whatever period of time it is between now and when we meet next, for the next week, for the next month, whatever that time period is. I want you to document every minute of every day. Everything you do every day from now until we meet again. So if you go to bed at 10 o'clock, you get up at 6 o'clock. Okay, well, there's 8 hours that was sleep. Right? But what are you doing all day, every night, all night, every night? Write it down. Document it all. And so, of course, you can probably see where this is going. He gets that list, gets that documentation, and compares it to the top 5 priorities. And then it becomes a question of, are these really priorities? Because you're not doing anything about them. Right? We can say these things. We can say, oh, this is a priority, or this is something I want to do. But what are we actually doing about them? Nicole says my problem lately seems to be comparing my current self with who I used to be, who I want to be, who I thought I was. Interesting. Current self doesn't match up. The deep self-reflection is good and needed, but awareness and growth is painful, but you can't grow without awareness. Chris says apparently today is National I'm Not Going to Take It Anymore Day. I don't know specifically what that reference is, but let's hope. Yeah, the deep work is hard. And awareness is hard. There's something in there. Oh yeah, and that was one of the things that we talked about last night was, this person wants change, but they don't want discomfort. And that's not possible. It doesn't work that way. We have to embrace the discomfort in order to find the change. And so, when they're talking about, when they're complaining about the fact that they want to change, that they want to, this isn't what they're doing now, who quote unquote who they are now isn't who they want to be. They want to do these things, they want to get these things, so on and so forth. That's fine, right? If that aligns with your authentic self, if that aligns with your vision, your authentic vision of your ideal future self, it's fine to want to do those things, get those things, etc. But what's the discomfort that you're going to have to lean into? What are the changes that you're going to have to make in order to get there? And how do you know? I think for me, that's the question about this. Who are you? Right? If you can't answer that question, where do you find the guide? Where do you find the answer to what's next? And in that entering the Daily Stoic, I said this on Java with Jeff. I mean, I think we could have boiled it down to the last three sentences we could have skipped the Marcus Aurelius quote, which was, I had to read it several times. I even messed it up as I was reading it live on Java with Jeff, but I had to read it several times. Like, what in the world does that mean? And then Ryan Holiday's commentary on it, the last three sentences, I think, cleared it up really well. Right? If you don't know who you are and what you stand for, if you aren't acting out who you are authentically, what you stand for, then do you end up chasing things that don't matter? And there's a whole list there of basically being distracted, basically wasting your time and energy, wasting your resources. There is Megan Dolly, Nicole and Christian know Megan Dolly. She's a fractional CFO, right? I think is the title that she uses. Fractional CFO. I love her philosophy of budgeting for, I forget the word she uses, but budgeting for experiments, budgeting for fun, meaning, hey, in our business, we got a budget for these bills, this overhead, these salaries, whatever all the things are, and we're going to have a budget to try things. I love that. None of this is to say that we shouldn't be exploring. But I think that, and I think that's part of the power of this as well. Right? I've been using these terms a lot lately, the idea of thinking and acting expansively. And if we know who we are and what we stand for, right? And I mentioned Simon Sinek, start with why. I can go deeper into that than I did during Java with Jeff, but in start with why, Simon Sinek talks about the fact that few organizations actually know why they do what they do. You get into the idea of purpose-driven organizations or purpose-driven people, for that matter. Roy Spence Jr., maybe. It's not what you do, it's why you do it. Another book reference. Once we understand who we are, we'll walk around the church today. Once we understand who we are and what we stand for, once we understand our why, once we understand our purpose, that becomes the guide. That becomes the test that says, okay, here's this thing. Here's this thing that I've said I wanted to get. Here's this thing that I said I wanted to do. Does it match up? Does it align with this purpose or with this why? Right? That's the litmus test. Nicole says, I think I do show up as me, but it's failure to act on things I know I need to do, not meeting my own expectations. Actions. I get that. It's hard. It is hard. We're just over 6 days into this year. And, I need to give myself some grace. Over the weekend, long, quick trip, lots of activity, lots of staying up late, lots of driving, all these things. Kids have been home. One is still home. One went back. Takes me out of my routine, takes me out of my schedule. I'm tired. I'm fatigued by the things that I'm seeing in the news. I'm fatigued by paying too much attention to those things. It's understandable and easy for us to get to the point where we know what we need to do. We know who we are. We know our purpose. We know our why. And we know the actions that need to be taken. Maybe, maybe not. But if we do, when we do, we still aren't taking those actions. And I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Why not? How do we get back to that? I think we probably need to give ourselves some grace around it and ask and for ourselves. I mentioned this, I think last week or the week before. Fantastic way to frame a lot of things. It was specific to a yoga studio where the yoga instructor said, this is a place of no judgment. It's a place where we show up with curiosity and kindness. I think we could adopt that and adapt it for our own use. Right? How do I show up curious for myself? Okay, I'm not getting these things done. Why not? What's stopping me? Is it lack of alignment, or is it something else? So, I mean, maybe that's the thing. We need to show up. We need to stop judging ourselves. We need to show up with curiosity and kindness and figure out how we move forward. All right, we made it to the coffee shop. Thanks for walking with me today. Think about that question. Who are you? How are you going to answer that question for yourself? Thanks for walking with me. I'll be back tomorrow.